Welcome to the first Limelight Awards, where the goal here today is to highlight some of the gems of gaming which tend to fly under the radar. Now, I'm not saying there won't be any big titles here. Some of these did climb to some level of recognition without me having to get the word out. But the general guiding force behind this video was to highlight the games that I didn't feel got enough attention this year. Because let's face it, 2023 was a stacked year for gaming with tons of releases. And maybe this can serve as a reminder to get back in and play that game you forgot about while we wait for the games on the horizon. At the end of the day, my hope is that you guys see a game you've never heard of and maybe wind up loving it, and if I can do that, then I've done my part. Now keep in mind, this list is in no particular order, but with our introduction checklist checked, let's get into our first game. Hi-Fi Rush. I know most people will have heard about this game by now. It did manage to get the word out just a little bit, but I'm going to include it as I feel it deserves a little bit more recognition overall. This game, developed by Tango Gameworks and published by Bethesda Softworks, Hi-Fi Rush is a wonderful rhythm-based combat game that I find to be extremely accessible for gamers of all levels, from people who can barely understand tempo being able to do enough basic moves to clear the game, all the way to the best of the best achieving insanely diverse combos and being able to clear the game's higher difficulties and challenge modes. This game features some fun bosses and some endearing characters, from the main character of Chai, who wants to be a musician with some recognition, to my dream woman Corsica, which no, I won't be taking questions at this time. And we haven't even talked about the art style. This cel-shaded mixed with anime-inspired art is a beauty. If this game had been done in any other style, it would have been a major disappointment, especially for the environment. It would be so boring and flat. The bright colors and shading really make it stand out, and you spend a lot of time looking at the environment, not even just to take in the view, but because the environment literally tells you the rhythm you're striving to hit, which is such an inventive way to visually show it to the player. Not to mention it has a fun story to top it all off, and I think you'll find the time you invest in it, at least for one playthrough, will make for some fond memories. Cocoon. This is a puzzle game developed by the team over at Geometric Interactive, and this is their first outing at this level. They have a couple other games that they are credited for development, being Thoth and 140, but this is the start of things ramping up for this studio in years to come, I am just sure of it. This game is absolutely great, and I am not exaggerating in the slightest. My only complaint is that I've already 100% the game, which in today's gaming landscape is hardly a problem. It feels super rewarding in a way that a puzzle game hasn't made me feel since the game's Superliminal. Simply describing the gameplay of this title doesn't explain the half of it, but for the sake of this video, I will try my best. You play as this bug-like creature who throughout the course of the game acquires these orbs which when placed on certain pedestals allow you to travel to a different world. And this at the start serves as a borderline level select feature, then rapidly evolves into fun puzzles that get you to stack these orbs inside of each other in order to clear obstacles, effectively becoming a galactic nesting doll towards the end of the game. The art style fits super well, and I really enjoy just looking at any random shot from this game, especially the designs for the bosses. And that's right, I said bosses. This isn't just some you solved a Rubik's Cube time to move on game. You fight these epic bosses along the way. Now they aren't difficult or anything, but just liven up the gameplay so much, and I'm so happy they felt the need to include them. As I feel that's where a lot of puzzle games go wrong. They don't have a feature like this that adds another level of enticement to the gameplay. Amnesia the Bunker. Frictional games are the ones we get to thank for this experience, and let me just say, every one of their games is great, and this is no exception. What I think is the most inventive survival horror we've seen in a long time. It is a rewarding experience to be able to successfully escape with your life after being trapped in a World War I French bunker, where in most other games there's a very clear path that the developers intend for you to access the next area. For example, the famous medallion puzzle from Resident Evil 2, which very clearly lays out the order you need to access certain rooms to progress the game. But this game was designed with an entirely different thought process in mind, where most, if not all, obstacles have more than one way to be surpassed, and it was designed in hopes that players would come back to the game multiple times to see how they can manage to flee to safety this time. I think this definitely lays the groundwork for future genre entries. If you somehow not played the previous Amnesia games, you can still enjoy this without having played those, but as someone who played them, I highly recommend going back. And their hit game Soma for that matter, which is one of the most profound stories in all of gaming. But we've gotten off topic. I challenge you to enter this dark bunker and find out that the only way out is down. Lies of P. As a long-term Souls fan and following the spectacle that was Elden Ring, I have found myself in this limbo period of waiting to hear more information about the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, and I was itching for some more content in this vein. And while I've always said pretty much every game that tries to emulate From Software typically goes poorly, this is not one of those times. NeoWiz Games and Round 8 Studios seem to have figured it out pretty well. Playing as Pinocchio, you are tasked with liberating the city of puppets that have staged an uprising against the humans. The story was a fun time with plenty of notes and letters for those who want to better understand the story, but for those who tend to not read in-game messages, you will still find a satisfying story with countless boss fights and cool designs. And the game doesn't seem to overstay its welcome, unlike a lot of Souls-like clones that I have I've played. It gets out just in time, leaving a teaser for a future game, which honestly sounded pretty cool in all honesty. If you find yourself in the same mood I've been, I highly recommend giving this one a go. This game not only emulates the From Software formula, it also makes it its own. It adds a few extra layers that makes it stand out amongst the crowd, and I think it really should be given a better look because of it. Alan Wake 2. I would be remiss to not mention this game. As a longtime fan of this studio, and especially the first game in this series, Alan Wake 2 is just incredible. I played the first one over and over again when it came out when I was a much younger lad. Same goes for American Nightmare, the unfairly forgotten Remedy Studio entry. They had the game Control in more recent history, which I also loved, but this is something else. This is Remedy leaning into every single one of their strengths, and it works so well. The spooky elements are dialed up, the hybrid live-action animation, it is a great effect, and it's fully utilized in this game. Not to mention, this is a game that has not one but two distinct musical numbers with plenty of other music sprinkled in. How many other games can even say that they have one? I didn't even know we needed one, but not only did we need one, we needed two, and honestly, I would have been happy if there were 6 or more. Most of this music done by the ever-talented old gods of Asgard. It's just incredible to watch, and it feels so fun and ridiculous and absurd, and I loved every second of it. The cutscenes are highly cinematic. Anytime one of these starts, it feels like shots from a movie, and it's incredibly visually stylized. Not to mention the new characters they added, especially Agent Saga Anderson. And I'm excited to see what happens with them when the 2 DLCs eventually release, and hopefully in future franchise entries. Enough about how visually good looking the game is. After all, it is a video game. Let's talk about the game aspects. And I gotta say, it's also phenomenal in this department. A proper evolution from this franchise's beginnings with one of the most ambitious storylines I've ever seen, making this 13-year wait all the more worth it. If you played the original, go buy this game now and jump back in. If you haven't had that pleasure, start at the beginning and get caught up. You won't regret it. The Finals. A multiplayer FPS game, and before you go judging it super hard, just hear me out. I know this is a genre that has been hurting for some time now, but I feel this is a game the community should give a fair shot. The developers over at Embark Studios have made a really simple but fun class-based shooter game. Teams of 3 fight their way through the arena trying to reach whatever the mode's victory amount is. It is an utterly chaotic and fun time featuring phenomenal destructible environments, the types of which we've never seen before, fun gadgets, and the 2 modes that currently exist are both competitive and enjoyable. Now the game is free to play, which does mean they're pushing for you to buy some cosmetics to keep the game propped up, but I feel that they give you an adequate amount of base game customization to keep people happy, and everything being sold is exclusively cosmetic based, or if it's something like a new weapon or gadget, is paid for by earnable currency that accrues from just playing the game. So I say if you've been itching for a good FPS game when other franchises have been failing to deliver for the last handful of years, grab 2 of your friends and see if you have what it takes to make it to the finals. RoboQuest. Released in November of 2023 by Rise Up Studios, this is a first-person roguelike game, and I will admit 2 things to you now. First, I'm a relatively new fan to this genre, only really diving in with releases such as Hades and Risk of Rain. Second, I haven't finished this game quite yet. There's just been so many games on my plate, I've gotten a little distracted, but I promise I will make it to the end soon because I really enjoy this game. With a wide variety of weapons and a handful of character options with unique abilities to boot. I've already seen a wide variety of enemies in my time, and I'm sure it's only going to get a bigger roster as I progress the procedurally generated levels. The game also features 2-player co-op, which I can't speak to as I've never used it, but I feel it's worth noting that it at least has this option. But that brings us to the end of the nominees for the Limelight Awards. Hopefully next year I can do something bigger and better for this, and who knows where we might be by then. I just wanted to do my part to shine a positive light on what was a really good year for gaming overall. The best we've had in a long time. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I know this is a new type of video, so I hope it is well received, but subscribe if you want to stick around, like the video if you had a fun watch, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.